What's going on, Force family, and welcome back to Star Wars, guys. Hey, with the Book of Boba Fett coming out this month, we're breaking down all things Boba Fett. Maybe even dropping a couple Boba Betts along the way. So let us know your predictions. Let us know what you think's going to happen in the show. Let us know what you think won't happen in the show. Drop your Boba Betts in the comment section right now. No, seriously, I'll wait. But in all seriousness, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your support for us here at Star Wars, guys. And since we're new to YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And make sure to turn that notification bell on so you don't miss our future episodes. We appreciate the support. Much love, fam. And we'll see you in the next one.
Jabba ruled with fear.
There could be a lot of people.
I intend to rule with respect. Miss Tatooine. I don't Tatooine. Welcome to Star Wars Guys podcast. We're off the rails 5 seconds in. That's how you know it's going to be a good show.
Hey, that's a lesson that we don't do stuff over.
No, we just
roll it. Look,
we commit to a bit and we go.
What happened right before? I said, all right, we're recording. Let's go. We start.
We deal with the fallout.
And he said, I don't have a good Tamar Morrison voice. And
to be honest, and to be honest, I think every one of my practice ones was a little bit better than the one I just did.
Do it one more. There's a better one in
Give
there.
it to him.
We're not starting over. This is just a bonus.
Jabba ruled with fear. It's the fear that gets me.
It's fear.
Fear.
Yeah.
I intend to
rule with respect.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
They want a wanga.
They want a wanga.
They Jabba no bother.
How would Jeff Goldblum say that line?
Oh yes, well Jabba. Yes, Jabba. Jabba ruled with fear. Yes, but I spider Bomar monk. I intend to rule with respect. Yes.
I can hear people clicking away.
Yes.
The audible sound of clicking.
Is this a better intro than our?
No, nothing's better.
No, that was our
We put a band together.
Our choreographed performance of that
was fantastic.
Was our best intro.
Awesome.
That was fantastic. Anyway, welcome back to Star Wars, guys. We're your hosts, myself, Nate, Mike, and you know him well, Uncle. But if you can't get it by the quote already,
if you can't get it
with the
we can't help you.
The Boba Fett quote,
We're talking about Jeff Goldblum.
We're talking about Jeff Goldblum.
Talking about
If you can't get it, I understand.
We're going to be talking about the Book of Boba Fett.
Yes.
New trailer dropped today. Little teaser. They announced 7 episodes.
7 episodes. Yes.
We're assuming it's not going to be all at once. They're going to stick with the Disney theme, I guess, of once a week, probably. So, yeah, we're going to dive into it.
To build off that real quick, because any of our longtime listeners know that episodes, we can say episodes when we're talking about the podcast. Do we want to place a Boba Bet right now and say that it's very likely in a show entitled Book of Boba Fett, is it going to be chapter 1?
We got to have chapters.
They have chapters.
They're going to roll
if
with
Mando's
the Mando
going
theme.
chapters and Book is going song 1.
Right,
Song
it
2. That
doesn't
wouldn't make any sense. It's not the album
Part
of Boba
1?
Fett.
We're going chapters.
Not
can have
side
chapters.
B. of
Wait, is this
Boba
your
Fett?
first
Yeah.
Boba Bet?
This is a Boba Fett.
That's your first Boba Bet? Going with chapters?
I play some Boba Betts. I'm going with
All right.
chapters. Have we even coined the term Boba Bet yet? Or
Yeah,
is
we
that, I
just
think they
now.
just.
I
think
would
we just fell into it.
I would put 1,000 credits on that.
Oh.
I'd put 200. Now you have to remember the currency. Calamari flam. Very rare. Very rare post fall of the Empire.
Right.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So yeah, we're talking all things Book of Boba Fett. We in classic style of the way we do this podcast, we had a long conversation not about Boba Fett at all before the show. We started talking about Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. So let's just wing it.
We're going to do it. We're going to wing it.
Let's
Before we dive into it, I want to ask.
So we're going to do it exactly like we always do.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, like we always do.
Exactly. It's good. We're going to X-wing it.
Either of you or both of you seen
Tie it all together.
The Boba Fett documentary thing that's been out on Disney Plus? What's it called?
Yeah.
Title?
Under the
Is it
helmet.
Under the Helmet.
Under the
The
Helmet.
Legacy of Boba Fett.
So we've all seen it.
Yeah. Good.
Okay,
Let's
how
dive
cool
into
was that?
It's awesome.
Oh,
That's
it's great.
awesome. I didn't realize. Okay, one thing.
I wanted to get your
One
take
thing.
on this too, as
Yeah,
someone
no.
who's been there.
That's
Yeah.
true. I didn't realize. I mean, I guess I wouldn't have known this until now, anyway. But they had one suit One of the coolest things I liked was that they're going through the parade. And
It's the same
Boba
as the
Fett
real
and
thing.
Vader are the suits that they wore on
It's
screen.
such a different time.
That they're
Even
just
Filoni's
walking
like,
down a parade.
doesn't
Actual
happen.
Darth Vader suit and the one Boba Fett suit that they have.
Yeah,
Just walking down the street.
it's
in
the
parade.
actual thing.
And no one knew who Boba Fett was at the
It
time.
wasn't even. It's
They just
crazy.
saw him walking with Vader and they're like, who is this guy? And he's signing autographs. He's never
That
even
was
been
that was pre-Empire though, right? That was
Pre-Empire.
between
Yeah.
the two. So
That was
So he wasn't
debut
even
of the
announced
character,
yet.
was
Debut
it?
Yeah.
was the parade.
unbelievable.
There's so many things to dive
Crazy.
into with this documentary.
Yeah.
One of the things we'll jump right to, of course. Well, one thing I was really excited about: 2021 new interview footage of George Lucas.
Right.
Like I had kind of accepted that. I thought we would maybe
That's it.
never
Yeah,
see
he's
George
not-
Lucas ever
right,
talk about Star
right.
Wars again.
Yeah.
And how about George's salty little, it's so classic
Perfect.
George. It's like, oh yeah, we
Yeah.
had this the holiday special thing, which weren't really involved, but
I didn't.
so I didn't.
Just
I
wants to separate himself.
we weren't really having
from
much
that as
involvement,
far
but
as
I
it
said,
can.
Why would you do a
I said,
cartoon?
yeah, it's cartoon. I thought maybe do a story about that in there. But it was great. He both took credit for the good part.
Yep.
He took credit for. He
And
told
then
them maybe throw that, but also
back
we
to
weren't really
wave.
involved.
Yeah.
The
But also
rest of that.
wasn't
Right.
involved at all.
I know.
Oh, it was the whole documentary.
Yeah.
Hearing from the different creatives along the way of like, how about the fact that when they're going through they're debuting his costume and
Yeah.
like just
Prototype.
amongst the creatives, and then they're like, oh, what's that over there? Oh, that's a towel that we wash off to
Star
play
Wars
sand
towel.
volleyball. Let's put
Right.
that on him. And now
Throw
he's
it
got
on
a
him. Like, oh, he's
cape.
got a cape. That's cool.
Yeah, cape. That's cool. Let's keep that.
George must have been way more laid back then because they asked him. He's like, yeah, go get that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sure.
whatever.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's just Star Wars towel.
It's crazy.
Wars
the
towel.
prototype,
All white?
though.
Yeah.
Speaking of it,
New Stormtrooper. Yeah, there it is.
can we acknowledge right here, if you
Wow.
haven't noticed the pops,
That wasn't even planned.
wasn't
What?
planned.
Just
Prototype
it's just sitting there.
Boba Fett right here, Funko Pop.
Wow.
Got it.
You would think we were sponsored by Funko Pop with that setup. Uncle even said
You
all
would.
white.
There it is.
Sitting on top.
By the
that
way,
was perfect.
this episode brought to you by Funko
Prototype.
Pop. Yeah.
Prototype. What's my prototype? Yeah, gosh.
The
Documentary.
suit's cool. It was cool seeing not just the footage, like you said, the funny stuff with like the cape and how they kind of came up with different pieces of it.
Right.
But also just hearing, and I had heard this before, that it was supposed to be an elite stormtrooper type thing. That's kind of the idea of it being white. But then seeing them progress to, we don't have suits for more than one.
And we're not gonna have 100 of
We're
these
not
things.
going to have 100 of these.
So what that
How can
means
we
is
change
that
the story?
If that happened today, we wouldn't have had Boba Fett because they
No,
could have
'cause
made
they can do
100
whatever.
computer.
Right.
Like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, clones. There you go.
There you go.
But yeah, it was cool kind of seeing that morph into, all right, how can we write this character in?
Yeah.
And then also just the breakdown of the time on screen. The first time we see him, aside from the holiday special, this is the first shot. I like how they showed it. They pause it. First shot of Boba Fett that we see on screen. And it's just like half his body far back in the distance. Like, this is the big,
Yeah.
this is him.
The
It's like,
stance.
it's just
In the stance.
somehow he becomes a fan favorite off of 6 minutes or whatever it was?
No, so it was in what was it, 5 total or 6 total lines of dialogue?
Yeah, 6. That's what it was.
Yeah.
6 lines.
That's it.
It's the but you can probably speak to this even more than us, Uncle. I think a lot of and again, when I was 10 by the time, well, let me see, it would have been, I was 8 when the Phantom Menace came out. I was of the age where Matt and I definitely watched all the originals and then sat with those for a couple of years leading
Right.
into the prequels first. And I even remember some of that was Matt diving into some of the EU books and the expanded
Yeah.
universe, and a lot of that was these additional. And they talk about it a little bit on the documentary of kind of the less is more. Why? One of the reasons Boba Fett was so cool, especially at the time, was it left you so much wanting so much more because everything about him was a mystery.
That's
see
right.
He
it,
was
you're
this
like,
guy
who
who
is
was
this
this
guy?
cool armor. They
Yeah.
didn't do anything to really explain who he is other than he's
Right.
a bounty hunter. And that's why also the stories about IG-88 and
Right.
Dengar and all these guys are like,
Right.
oh, what? This is him? This. And then you
Boss,
start writing your own
yeah.
stories. But just wondering because again, you sat with this character for a
Yeah.
long time before, a lot longer than any of us. Was it something that initially, right when you start hearing about Boba Fett and you see him on screen? Was it something that immediately you were drawn to, or was it over time, or how do you remember kind of your feelings towards Boba Fett back then?
Was it like instantly, who is that guy?
Yes. Well, part of the thing about Star Wars, Episode 4, everything was new. We've talked about this. Everything was new. Okay.
Yeah.
So you come to Empire, and now you got a lot of familiar stuff.
Sure.
You're seeing, of course, you start on Hoth with all that new stuff, but you're familiar with Darth Vader, you're familiar with Star Destroyer, you're familiar with Luke, Chewie, aliens, kind of getting used to it. But then all of a sudden, there's this other guy who sounds like a human, so you know he's not an alien. But then I thought about this later, like what was the thing? Because I was totally in. There's a handful of figures that I wanted specifically after 5. And Boba Fett was like right at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Like, what? And with the rocket and all that stuff. And I think it was partly because the used universe kind of thing.
Yeah.
You notice that this guy has seen, he doesn't have a perfect, stormtroopers, a lot of them had a pristine look.
And they dive into this in the documentary.
He doesn't.
Right.
He's been through all kinds of battles.
You got the bullet mark. You got the scraped up
scuffed
armor.
up and scratched up. And what is that thing? And oh, he's got a rock. What is that? The way he holds the blaster, the mechanic's voice. It feels like a stormtrooper, but it's not a stormtrooper. All the questions and the mystery about it. And the fact that he's the only one that could really get the edge on Han Solo.
Yeah.
That
immediately
added to
has
his, because Han Solo was always my favorite character.
Yeah.
And Boba Fett was no good to me, Dad. He had that, like, just something about it. He was a cool character. Heartless in a way, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Extremely thin. The ship was like, what is this thing?
So cool.
Flying sideways.
Oh,
the sound of it.
Yeah.
The whole thing was cool. And I never got the rocket, the one that the rocket would shoot out.
Uh-huh.
I heard about those after. Mine was like soldered in.
Yeah.
I think it's because they discontinued that.
Right.
toy.
They didn't do that many.
They made a bunch and then they discontinued it and decided not to put them out there. But then some of them that were already made ended up getting out.
They're out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was,
crazy.
man. Everybody we play. I was like, Boba Fett. Because we used to pick. You'd set them out and you'd pick.
Yeah.
Boba Fett was first, like, almost all the time.
Yeah.
Even though Vader's there, it's like, it's just cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's continue on that. I think that let's dive into that in your mind, especially when you're looking at your action figures and you're thinking of, you've seen Empire, you've seen what he does with Han Solo. I heard someone else bring this up and it made me, I'm trying to rack my brain of my first thoughts when I'm thinking of my own Boba Fett stories like that Matt and I used to create and stuff. In your mind, does this feel like it is very much, I think it's like, oh, Han Solo finally met his adversary. He met someone of equal or higher skill where Han can talk his way out of anything. He's always he's just been slippery enough to get away, and all of a sudden it doesn't happen that way.
Right.
Does it feel, I heard some people asking this too, of like, in your mind, was this the only time you think that they've met? I heard someone speculate like, oh, I used to have stories in my head of, did these two know each other? Was there a Han Boba backstory where Boba Fett, like, is this something where they were aware of each other, or is this their only run-in they've ever had? Is it, especially with like some of the, especially now when you see some of the backstory of like, oh, Fennec Shand going all the way back to Bad Batch and stuff like that, and she's had a name for herself even back then.
Right.
By the time we see her post-Empire, post-Fall of the Empire, I mean, she's clearly had 100 missions, a ton of different things.
Yeah.
But just fun fan speculation of like, I wonder if it's just the way that some of the, and again, when it was made, George probably didn't have all this backstory, but you're like, there's some stuff with the delivery of the way Han talks about Boba Fett and the brief, like, Boba Fett, like, people know who Boba Fett is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also, he's good and there's no good to me dead. Like, there's also like, it feels like this is an extra, there's something a little extra to him capturing Han that you just wonder if they had any run-ins in the past.
I would say probably so.
Yeah.
I mean, because Vader only brought in a handful of bounty
Right.
hunters.
Yeah.
He's not going to bring in.
And for Vader to bring people in too.
He's going to bring in the.
He's bringing the best.
They're going to be able to do something that he wasn't able to do, and
Yeah.
spread out in a way that he can't. So I think probably so. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. It's,
Yeah.
you know, another thing we used to play with Boba Fett. I was just remembering this as you were talking about it. It was a debate among us if Boba Fett was a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah.
Because he's a bounty hunter, but that doesn't mean he's not. We always talk about he's not on the dark side.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
He's not a Jedi. He's not always for Vader. So we would have him going like sometimes the other way. It wasn't always just.
Yeah.
He was doing it for money, which made him a unique character. Because, I mean, Han was a little bit like that, but by the time we finished 4, he's on.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
He's with the
He's
Alliance.
joined the
you
cause.
Had Rebel Alliance. You had Empire. But then Boba Fett was just like this guy that just
Doing a job.
it's
Just a simple man trying to make his way in the universe.
make his way in the universe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was a cool character. Never saw his
Yeah.
face until
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
True. And who knows? When it comes to Vader, you might be forced into doing something you don't even want to do.
That's right.
So who knows?
And the way he talked
what-
to Vader put him at a level like who talks to
Yeah.
Vader like that? The way
Yeah.
he said it,
yeah.
he's no good to me dead. It's like who
I don't see any of the other
speaks
Imperial
that
officers
way,
talking to him.
right?
Yeah.
It's
Tarkin,
just-
maybe that's it.
Yeah.
maybe right.
That's about it. But yeah, no, it's such an interesting. But I just thinking about going in your shoes and seeing that and wondering the speculation. Do you have some sort of, I don't know what the word is, but like, is there some completion now to getting more of that? And who like finding more out about Boba Fett now? Like,
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of hesitancy too.
because you have ideas of what he is, you don't want
Yeah.
to kind of.
I'm not sure I
Contradict some of that.
want to go down certain.
Yeah,
I don't want him to be too good. I don't want him to be too bad.
Yeah.
I still want him to fit within that
Yeah.
realm of. There needs to be, and I think we'll see. Favreau will have a code of honor that Boba Fett walks the line, and I'll be good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's a purpose for what he does, that's not just gratuitous.
Yeah, and I think some of the
Yeah.
stuff
I'll be
we've
okay.
seen,
Yeah.
like you talk about this line,
Yeah,
some of the stuff I think they portrayed, at least that we've seen in Mandalorian,
that's what we've seen so far.
Yeah.
was he helped, but when he was brutal, he didn't hold back. He was brutal, and it wasn't just like, okay, I killed
Right.
this guy out of his misery.
Right.
He's beating guys with clubs. Like
Right.
it was like
There's
they
an anger there,
They
too.
made it intentional to show like he's also not messing around.
No.
Like he's getting the job done. He's doing what he's doing. But then they take the code, and he's like, "No, that's my armor. It was this. It was
That's
my
right.
father's before me."
And he
It
also said,
actually
"I
was
told you
mine."
I'd help you until you."
Right.
We're not done yet.
He was a man
Yeah.
of his
Keep
word.
respect
He
to
said
life
that, yeah.
dead, and all of a sudden, yeah.
So definitely interesting on the line there
Mhm.
for sure. And I think they're trying to portray that from what we've seen in The Mandalorian. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out in Book of Boba Fett. But who knows?
Yeah. I can't wait with as we can dive even more into the show now of the Book of Boba Fett. We're a month as we're recording this, 1 month
Yeah.
away from
Yep.
the premiere episode. Some stuff that I'm very interested in seeing. One in the little 31 seconds, I think it was, clip that they released today. We were watching a little bit beforehand. He talks about how he was left in the sands of Tatooine, and then they cut to him what looks
Yeah.
like
Back
with like
tank.
a ventilator, looked like a back to tank.
Yeah.
They showed in the initial trailer and in this one too, Tusken Raiders. I'm thinking this could possibly be a flashback of the Tusken Raiders
Yeah.
finding him,
Yep.
Mhm.
pulling him out of the pit, or if he's regurgitated, whatever happens, him surviving. We've all wondered for a long time, and even going back to before Mandalorian, before any of this, there have always been the stories of someone who is that cool, someone who is that. We had all these stories built
Yeah.
up. Man, kind of a weak way for him to go out, just
Yes.
falling into the Sarlacc
I was about
pit.
to ask. I was about to
And
ask you that.
There are some stories that you're like, oh, okay, why are we're undoing a good ending, or we're adding a good ending to some, or like it was perfect, why touch it? This is one of those where like the character was so cool, it was actually even though it served as far as the story of Han and Luke and Leia, it served its purpose of him falling in because they had to get out of Jabba's palace. They spend the first 45 minutes of the movie there,
right?
And he can't follow him forever. But it also made sense character-wise that that's not how he would go out. Like even though it's just now being finally written into canon, all of us in our minds are like, what? Does that really end that way? He can't. It doesn't feel like that. Someone who is built up and is that cool
to go out like that.
To go out like that seemed like he's got more fight in him, and I love that. It looks like they're not only obviously when they showed him in Mandalorian, it confirmed that he didn't die then, but also that they're actually going to go back and show us.
Yeah,
a lot of that stuff is something I think everybody's been wanting since Return of the Jedi. Is seeing and hoping that he was alive, and then finding out how in the world did he survive.
Right.
I agree. I think some of the stuff I'm most interested about the show are, one, I do think we'll get some of that stuff. It's based on the trailer, some of that backstory of how he kind of got out. But I honestly have no idea where it's going to go. Like they're talking about how he says the line of like, I plan on ruling basically Jabba's palace with respect.
Yeah, remember I nailed that line at the beginning of this.
He nailed
it.
Yeah.
Twice,
yeah.
But what does that look like? Like, it's obviously not going to be him just in a chair the whole time telling other people to do what, like, demanding orders like Jabba kind of did. It's going to be him going out doing stuff too. So, like, I understand it looks like this is kind of where things are going so far, of like him ruling Jabba's palace. But what do the missions look like? I feel like there's got to become an overall, it's not just going to be job here, job there, job there.
Right.
There's going to be some main theme or some story that's going to pull him in a direction.
I have a bet.
All right, let's hear it.
Boba Fett?
I've mentioned this before, but I believe the Book of Boba Fett could be chapters of his life. And we actually see
like different time periods, you mean?
Time periods.
Okay.
That could span everywhere from the moment he falls into the Sarlacc pit all the way through the current timeline.
Yeah.
And we could see chapters pulled out to explain certain things. So it doesn't have to follow necessarily a story line.
Okay.
I think it's the Book of Boba Fett because it's the story of his life.
It is very interesting why they
maybe not.
It is interesting. Yeah.
But that would explain how we get all the way back to the Sarlacc, how he's explaining that, and we show him there.
Yeah.
That's one. Okay,
and
chapter 1, boom. That's where it starts.
Or it could be chapter 2.
Yeah.
Where they set where we are and the timeline is, and then 20 years ago, chapter 2. Or 10 years ago.
I think that
I like that.
That
could tell different vignettes that tie it together.
I think that's a possibility, and I think that also allows for them to take the approach of here's a story, here's kind of a mission, here's another mission, here's a story, as opposed to trying to do a story or mission but keeping it sequential, like right in the same timeline.
Yeah.
Because then then you have an expectation as to why it's just a mission here, mission there, mission there. You're kind of seeing that.
Right. All the questions we have are in the past for Boba Fett.
Yeah.
All those blank spaces are like, well, where did his armor actually come from? How did he get that dent in his head that almost maybe killed him?
Yeah. Where's Slave One been? Where's his ship been? They show a little bit in a clip too of it looking like it's in a hangar. You're like, who's been watching it?
No.
Who pulled him out of the Sarlacc pit? How did he get in the
how did he get his
tank?
ship back? Is that what you're,
All of those little things that
I will say now.
I'd like to answer.
2 things. One, you touched on the bullet.
Yeah.
There is a outtake deleted in was it Clone Wars?
Oh, are you talking about?
There's a deleted scene basically in Clone Wars that wasn't even fully animated because they ended up deciding not to put it in, so it's not canon.
Yeah.
But it was him versus Cad Bane. Cad Bane shoots in a draw, hits his helmet, showing where the bullet came from. Now, again, they didn't put it in, so it's not.
Yeah.
It's not official because they ended up not putting it in there, but it seems like that was kind of an idea. But that doesn't mean this couldn't be a flashback that we actually do now see live action. That would be
Cad
cool.
Bane in there, man.
That would be cool.
Live action. We just brought Cad Bane back to Bad Batch?
Man.
Yeah.
Great
and Fennec
character.
Shand too. Now, my other thing was going to be, if we are taking this approach of maybe some flashbacks about what happened, and because we've had Boba Fett here and there, we still haven't really defined who his character is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we get some Mandalorian type flashbacks of him thinking back to Jango? Do we get some of the Clone Wars era flashback of him? Because, I mean, easy casting.
Right.
Hey,
but I mean, do you think we get
training
any of that sort of flashback, too, of kind of why he ended up following his dad's footsteps?
Yeah.
I mean, we get a little bit in Clone Wars. But
I mean, a little bit of like Aura Singh? A little bit of him getting in with the rough crowd? Some of that stuff in where he takes off in Clone Wars. You're like, this
in Clone Wars, we see a little bit of that, but he's young.
Yeah.
He's still really young.
Mm-hmm.
But do we see any of him thinking back, like, of the trauma or like his hate for Mace Windu probably on, or like any of this? Does any of that come up because of the death, or maybe he blames Count Dooku and the Sith? I don't know. You know what I mean?
Maybe he has a run-in with a young Tobias Beckett. They just de-age Woody Harrelson,
right?
Even younger.
Woody's in everything else.
He just wants to play the Valakor.
Maybe he gets tied up with Crimson Dawn somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
there's a lot of possibilities.
We know he's kind of worked in and out of that underworld.
For sure.
Not just bounty hunting, but also kind of staying low when he was younger, trying to find his path because he had nobody.
Yeah.
We saw some of that in Clone Wars, so it makes me think of...
So you going to have to deal with the other Hutts, too?
Yeah.
I mean,
possibly. I think...
yeah.
So a few things of current questions or current things I'm really excited for. We were talking about him and like similarities of him... basically him and Jango. Jango, just simple man trying to make his way in the universe. Boba, when you were talking about the fine line of code, don't want him to be too good, don't want him to be too bad, because he's not a Sith Lord and he's not a Jedi. Mm-hmm. He's not with the Rebel and he's not full blown Empire. He's a hired gun. He's someone who is in it for himself.
Yep.
This is interesting. This feels too like sort of the opposite side of the Din Djarin Mando coin of what does Mando, or even like opposite side maybe of Bad Batch, where like what does Bad Batch do because we're like these aren't rebels, they're not Rebel Alliance type,
right.
But they also have a code and an honor and they do stuff for good. Boba's living on the other side, I think, where he's definitely veers more to the greed, selfishness side than the Bad Batch do. But what's interesting now is him feels like also could be like he's going back. He's taking power now for himself. Like it feels very much like them saying like the Jabba ruled with fear, I intend to rule with respect. And then he sits there and in the trailer and he says, please speak freely. But basically it's a very ominous speak freely if you dare.
Right,
like really share your mind.
Right.
Just know he probably just beat someone's head in before he said that, and that they haven't shown that yet. I think it's gonna be really interesting to see what his character is like as far as his motivations. Like we said, if we're worried about him being too good, I think him wanting to be the ruler of the criminal underworld probably eliminates him becoming too good. But I like that but he's not just Jabba who's a glutton who's just like has slaves and stuff like that.
That's right.
And hired dancers who have stuff hanging out of their teeth in the special edition. That's not his vibe.
No.
But it feels like he is. It's going to be. I think they're gonna. Again, I also trust Favreau and Filoni.
Favreau and Filoni. I
do like Filoni.
Are they tag teaming on this?
Tag teaming.
All right. So here's okay.
I believe Favreau wrote. I think Filoni helped show running and co-produce it, but Favreau I believe
is writing
is doing a lot of the writing for this.
So here's something to think about then. Okay, so if you think about the pragmatic side of the show, clearly Mando was a Western.
Yeah,
that's kind of the vibe of it.
Yeah,
Wild West gunslinger kind of thing. Bad Batch was kind of that thing where it's the specialized fighter thing.
Yeah,
it's the seven
team.
Samurai.
It's what
that is.
Yep.
Everybody's got their specialty.
Everyone's got their
it feels like Book of Boba Fett is going to be more mafia gangster side
Yeah.
kind of thing, where the Godfather kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And there is a code. There's a very clear code in that respect of the way, just using the term respect rather than fear.
Yeah.
All those kinds of things, the meetings,
that's the families. That's the
family mentality of it.
Yeah.
So I think that might be where that fits into the to the universe, kind of. Maybe where the show fits.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right.
He's like Don Corleone. It's like kind of what he's doing.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think one thing that's interesting too, and you kind of made me think about this when you mentioned Mando. Mando, we kind of find out early on, because he was brought in, that he was throughout the thing, and he kind of finds it through Grogu, but he's looking for family. Like he's a bounty hunter. He's doing this, but the whole time it almost seemed like this is what he was doing to get by, but it wasn't really.
It's not the.
He never felt like he really belonged.
Yeah.
With the guild, like it seemed like he was still looking for a family, looking for someone else to kind of go along in a purpose, and he kind of found that in Grogu.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Boba Fett almost seems like a little bit of the opposite. Like because of his history, it's almost like I don't see him sensing out seeking a family or like a group or a team. Now he's got Fennec Shan, but I don't think that's going to be more of like. It's you and me to the end type thing. It's more like you kind of owe me because I saved your life type thing.
Yeah.
Like we're working together, we're a team, but not like the same way that Mando and Grogu were like, I'm doing this to try and help you. Like this is my purpose. I feel like he's kind of more like, I'm going to run this thing and people are going to do what I want them to do and I'm going to take control, but not because I want to build this group for us to all be a thing together.
It's,
I don't know.
This is
it's more like I still want to
beneficial.
be secluded. I still want to be just me doing my own thing. But you guys are going to listen to me. I don't know.
I can see that. So here's one of the questions these guys always ask is what does Boba Fett, what's his purpose? What does he need to overcome? What's the conflict in his life? What thing in his past is driving him to something in the future? And I think the key moment is Mace Windu killing Jango.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Setting that trajectory. So I don't see how that can be
or Sarlacc. He's just going to go after all Sarlaccs.
Well, a Jedi in any sense, because Luke Skywalker is like probably...
Yeah.
Sent him into the pit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It is weird, though, because he doesn't have any ill towards Grogu.
Yeah.
Which maybe he doesn't know Grogu's a Jedi or doesn't really know the extent of it. He still sees him as a child,
but
he still sees him, he still sees him as vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I do agree with what you're saying. I don't know if it's necessarily I'm out for all Jedi or if it's just like, I don't know. I definitely think that is the point, though. Is like,
he clearly had to be... The storyline, Favreau, they clearly understood, okay, Boba Fett cannot be anywhere around when Luke Skywalker shows up. That won't fit.
Yeah.
That cannot fly.
Because there's
That's
why he had to be
history
out of
there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it could be, I think somehow those things have to be a part of Boba Fett's story. Has to. Whether it's what we're looking back on or... Because that's kind of the main emotional conflict for him.
Yeah.
That would be a funny alternative deleted scene if Boba's right there and Luke does this whole thing and everyone's in awe and Luke comes in and he talks about the child and he wants your permission and he's going through his whole thing and may the force be with you. You're looking good, Boba. Glad to see you got out of there. Glad to see that gurgling, burping monster didn't end you. Just see how I just destroyed all the Dark Troopers? A burping monster took you out.
Remember that? When you fell in that pit?
That was also the...
Remember when you thought I was walking the plank?
That was the perfect
did this very subtly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now R2.
It burps too after it gets him.
Like,
of
I did feel a little bit cheated in that one.
Yeah.
Boba Fett dead. But we overlooked that stuff in the originals.
Oh yeah.
That doesn't fly nowadays.
Yeah.
That'd get ripped apart.
That's not my Sarlacc. My Sarlaccs don't burp.
That's not my Boba.
Right.
And why are we okay with Boba Fett coming back to life, but we're not okay with the Emperor?
Right.
Fell down a
When
hole.
when
When we
one
watched
is
him-
when Boba's cool, but one is so crucial to literally the state of the whole galaxy.
Exactly. It would never die falling down.
throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, one's actually been digested. We're okay. One fell.
I thought Boba Fett was dead. I thought, how can the Emperor be dead?
I
That
thought
doesn't make
Darth Maul
sense.
was dead. He got chopped in half and fell.
And fell. And had the higher ground. So figure that one out.
Yeah.
That's just breaking all types of Star Wars rules. there.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
funny, but
But no, it's the current state of what's Boba after.
Yeah.
What's his motivation? What's he overcoming? What is the I wonder if we'll get into, because also this storyline now is Mando, not just Din, but the show. It's tangent. It's over here, and they've mentioned in the past about
them all coming
this,
together.
coming together for some sort of crossover event. At the time, they also were talking about Rangers of the New Republic, which obviously that shows
Right.
out. But you wonder also if he's going to have to deal more with this one, not being a Mandalorian. Now that, like, with all of the stuff he had to deal with being around the other Mandalorians, being around Din, him not being a Mandalorian, he's got the armor though, but also, like you said, of being a clone and dealing with the death of his father,
Yeah.
dealing with just what is if his whole life, just like Din's whole life has been raised with this is the way, and all of a sudden that's flipped on his head and he realizes I've been lied to my whole life. His entire life has been this was my father, I'm following my father's footsteps, this all leads to falling in the Sarlacc pit. What do I do with my life now? And then having the Tusken Raiders and stuff like that. It looks like Tusken Raiders are probably ones that make sense that help rescue him. But does he go back into, because it looks like in the trailers too, he's distinguishing now of what, he's not just a bounty hunter anymore. And what does that look like post bounty hunting when that's the only thing he's ever done? I mean, since he was 10 years old or something.
Especially in a time right now, which is like relatively lawlessness around the galaxy.
That's the time to see some underground
time
power
where
right there.
order is trying to be established.
That's right.
He's also, I'm taking the underworld. I'm going to start doing all this too. It'll be interesting to see because there's not going to be, the First Order coming into play, at least, to the extent that we see them in the, sequels, but, or any of the rebels. Like there's not any of this order established. So it'll be interesting to see.
Remind me something. Clone Wars. How old is Boba Fett the last time we see him?
Ooh, in Clone Wars?
In Clone Wars?
Isn't
he still young?
Still young,
He's
but
still young.
I'm thinking he's just a little bit older than he was in...
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe a couple years older than he was in Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
So what is the last how old is he? What's the oldest point we see him canon before we get to episode 5? How?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I don't know about like with the comics or anything like that, but I know, but based on the show,
A few years after
Attack of the Clones.
I mean,
he's
Clone Wars.
young.
So we've
Got
got
Clone Wars Boba.
We've got
the
room,
whole gap.
We've
before
got room.
Revenge of the Sith.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got
Because
room to
before-
see a
before the
young
Empire takes-
Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got some room to see all of those things where he, of course, it'd be a different actor, but all of the stuff, how does he survive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does he keep going? What?
Yeah.
And we talked about this before. What does he know about? What does he know about Omega?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does he
That's
know?
true.
Is there something? Does he know about that? Is there? I don't know. It's where would you go? What would you do?
Would you seek out
home,
other clones?
if the only home you ever knew?
Yeah.
Would you try to go back there to for safety? You're just a kid. You got the ship. What do you do? Right?
Yeah.
I wonder if they
Fall of Camino. Yeah. How's that affect? Like you said. Yeah.
Are we gonna get some more live action Camino? I don't know.
I was wrong on my Mando.
We've predicted it every
maybe.
show.
It would seem to fit like with Boba Fett pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. You made me think of stuff too when you said Omega is also just Bad Batch in general.
Yeah, any of those.
Because we know
guys.
they're out there. They're still trying to live their life and
That's
find their
right.
place as mercenaries. Are we?
And I'm not trying to like just pull every little piece in, but
Yeah.
Right.
like,
We're just saying
are
this
we
stuff that
cool?
makes
If,
sense.
I'm like,
Yeah.
if he's looking for a connection to survive, does he just go out on his own and try to live, or does he try to get back to what he knew
Yeah.
to start, or does he just go off on his own, or I don't know. But there's room to explore that stuff in the. I mean, who really trained him?
Yeah.
Who trained him beyond that point? Because he's still young.
Right.
Who did he learn from? What did he?
Right.
I've got a question for us. Do we see in Book of Boba Fett, will we get an appearance from Bosk? What do you think? Do we think that
I
there's,
think so.
Do we think any of those
uh,
other bounty hunters from any of those episode 5 bounty hunters show up?
I think we do because we saw the race in the trailer.
Yeah.
So I think we do.
With the Trandosians? I think so?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean
They're
we
all
saw
there.
them in the trailer, so I think we'll get some boss.
Yeah. We might.
He might seek him out. Not
happens when
necessarily
you-
as enemies, but
Yeah.
we've done jobs together. Let's
Yeah,
get what we
here
got.
you're
Let's do
here
it.
you're ahead of the Hut
Yeah.
crime ring
Right.
now. Want to throw a couple
Yeah.
bucks my way?
He
Yeah.
could take one group and he could start getting groups and doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let me ask you this: who does Boba Fett hate more? Because clearly this man is driven by hate. There's a
Mace
lot of,
Windu.
or Han Solo.
Oh yeah.
One did something to his father. One did something to him.
Him? I don't know. Or Luke
Or Luke.
Skywalker.
Luke is
That was
Yeah.
a Jedi. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they could. Any of these could be.
Here's the thing, dude.
Enter in.
I think some of that might be answered if we find out what was Boba Fett like. Was Boba Fett living his best life when he was working for Jabba? You know what I mean? Like, was he
Yeah.
was he like, all right, everything's kind of going well, you know, and then that's all ruined. He gets hit, goes in the Sarlacc. But aside from him actually physically like being harmed in the Sarlacc, also the way of living that he just had was now gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like his like way of living, doing jobs, being a bounty hunter was now gone because he's recovering all this, right? So was he like, dang, not only am I physically injured, but also my job, like everything I was doing is now the organization's gone.
Yeah.
So he comes back now, we see, to try and rebuild and lead Jabba's palace. But
I think that
does
makes
he have hate
ton of sense.
towards Luke and Han because of more than just the Sarlacc? Also, just he ended everything that he had going for him at the time.
And it was a humiliating death.
right.
Embarrassing, really.
I died before.
I died before, but never by a sand burping monster.
Yeah, I don't.
And a blind man.
I just feel like there's so much. I feel like I don't know. I feel like the other shows I kind of had a little bit more of an idea of where things can go,
They could go anywhere. Yeah.
and whether I was right or wrong, I still had somewhat of a guess.
Yeah.
I have no idea where this show.
Although
like,
we did
I
have
don't-
Mace Windu coming to get Grogu. We had that in there. I did.
We also had no
Really
clue.
off.
We thought we had an idea of what the Mandalorian show was going to be about.
That's
And
what
then
I
their very
mean.
No idea.
first episode,
Right.
very first
No
episode, they
idea.
introduced Grogu, and we're like, well, what the
What?
heck is this show about? We had no idea.
Right,
Yeah,
but
so
I
it's-
just mean I can't even think of I can't even speculate very well on, aside from just him running the underworld or whatever, his Jabba's palace. What is, like what you were saying earlier, his purpose? Like, what is his thing that he's...
What's the driver?
What's the drive, yeah, for him to go out? Like, what is his mission, overall mission?
I mean, money is money and power, right? But
Yeah.
there's something inside that he wants to achieve with the money and the power.
Right.
Something.
Yeah.
deeper
Is it
than
just...
that.
Is
yeah,
it proving?
control,
Is it
payback, proving?
Yeah. Proving
respect?
I'm
Could
not
be respect.
respect. I'm not the chump who went out the way that you thought I did. Is it payback? The Book
Is-
of Boba
yeah.
Fett could be a book of names too, or a book of okay. Going after
Yeah.
everyone in Jabba's palace who did me wrong. Going after this. Going after this. It's again, that's more far fetched,
Nope.
but it could be.
Yeah.
Right.
Could it be, you kind of said this, but could it be his name among the galaxy? Like you mentioned, not going, like letting everybody know, okay, I didn't go out this way. I wasn't this chump that went out in the Sarlacc. But also just like rebuilding his name among, because like we've seen it, the Han Solos, the bounty hunters, these guys want fame. Thinking to our game, right? Outer Rim.
Yeah.
What's the goal of the game is to get fame in the galaxy.
Want to be famous.
So is that also a drive for him of like getting his name back out? Because we talked about it. Everyone knew him before. Boba. Like everyone knew who was it. Is this him kind of trying to get back?
Well, think about
his name out there.
Just when he shows up, even that, like, wait, you were in the Sarlacc pit. How can you be back?
Yeah.
You survived in the
Yeah.
Sarlacc? Oh, that's something. But it kind of makes sense that do we know how long he was in there?
We don't know.
It had to be short because there's no way anytime you leave a gap in the crime thing, like to have Bib Fortuna step into that role, that's not going to last.
No.
There's no way anybody's going to let that last.
Yeah.
So he couldn't have been in there for long.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
what happened
days,
after he got out that
weeks.
now is what's he left with. Yeah.
I don't know. What would fit with the storyline?
Yeah.
So what about this?
Or what's the aftermath too? Like, is there a long recovery period?
Yeah, that's
is that
true.
part of it? Like he got out quick, but is there a long recovery? Is it my armor's gone? Is it
right
now? It's not just I'm healthy and healing, but I'm also now set back because I've got to get my armor. I've got to go do this.
You know why they saved him? You know why he was saved from the pit. They pulled him out because they thought he was. Whoever saw him go in said, "I want that armor."
Yeah.
They pulled him out to get that armor. They didn't care about him.
Yeah.
Probably.
That could be it. They pulled him out, took the armor, left him for dead.
And that's it. And someone else.
Yeah.
They cleaned him out, and then someone else was merciful and.
So this leads right into a question that I was just thinking about that I have. How the armor gets from Boba Fett to Cobb Vanth. Because now they get it, they touch on this a little bit in the aftermath of the books. So
that's a character we're going to see in Boba Fett.
One question that I have is, and this maybe leads us to believe that maybe this pivotal moment in Boba's life, him almost dying, goes in the Sarlacc pit. Maybe for a short period of time, the armor's gone, and he's like, I don't want anything to do with my. I want to have a new life. I want nothing to do with it. The armor's gone, but I'm not interested in that. I'm not this. Something happens, and then by the time he gets to Mandalorian, he wants his armor. He wants He wants his armor back.
Yeah.
Because one question I have, they make it very obvious in Mandalorian that in episode 1 of or chapter 9, first episode of season 2, that Cobb Vanth is well known as to walking around as sheriff wearing this armor.
If Boba wanted it, he could have come and got it.
People multiple towns over is like, oh well, there's a Mandalorian who's a Mandalorian sheriff over there.
Yeah,
people knew about
him. Like
he's walking around in broad daylight. Boba Fett, you're talking about the most notorious bounty hunter in the galaxy who literally hunts people for a living. Can't find his own armor.
100 miles.
He's one town over. Mm-hmm. So it makes it seem like he knew he had it and just had no interest for a while. But then when he sees it going off, all of a sudden maybe it's different. Knowing your armor is somewhere, it's like when you don't know what you had until it's gone or until you actually get a glimpse of something again. Use the analogy. This doesn't relate to my own life, but imagine someone who's in a relationship, old girlfriend, you hear they're in a new relationship, okay, whatever. You then see that old girlfriend at the store or something like that, and all of a sudden then feelings rush back. You're like, oh, you remember certain things. You have a different feeling towards it. Boba Fett, he wakes up, he doesn't have his armor, they're reviving him, he goes back to tank, they're saving him.
It's not the end of the world.
He's happy to be alive. He does probably quickly wonder, where's my armor? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's over in this town. Now I'm contemplating. Well, do I want to actually go? As soon as I go back to the armor, I go back to the life. I go back to the job. I go back to that. This is where it led me. Do I want to go back to that?
Someone else for now.
I'll leave it.
Yeah.
But then when they show that scene in Mandalorian where he's off and he sees in the distance it riding off on the speeder bike and he sees, now all of a sudden you see a glimpse of it. You see a glimpse of the armor and now it's,
I want it back.
Dang, that armor does look pretty good. even if I don't go back to the life, that's going to help.
Is it,
that right there is going to command respect.
Or
just like
it
it did for the sheriff.
Yeah.
The sheriff is Cobb Vanth is, like you said, he's like, oh, I just wear it because people respect me. It adds this extra level of protection for me in the town if they think it's a Mandalorian or someone of that skill is behind this armor. Boba Fett's got the armor back. So it's just, I wonder why that time. I wonder
I have
if they
another
dive
thought.
into that.
I might challenge you on that real quick.
Challenge.
I have another thought.
Go ahead.
What's the timing between Boba Fett goes in the Sarlacc pit and Din Djarin gets the armor from Cobb Vanth? What's the time difference? How long?
Years. So 5
years. 5.
I think
maybe
it's supposed to be 5,
maybe a little
years,
more,
maybe a little longer.
Is it possible
5 to 7, maybe?
that something prevented him? He was held prisoner.
Boba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was rescued and held prisoner and
True.
has been trying to get free this whole time
Wow.
and couldn't get out. And
That's
the first
story
chance he's able
of
to
him
get
coming
free,
back, too.
the whole time he's been trying to get free. So he might have been in the Sarlacc pit for a while, near dead, brought him back. Either he was in a coma, something to where he was unable to escape for some reason. And then somehow he escapes, and that's where we see him on the mountainside for the first time. He makes his appearance.
Yep.
He's going to get the armor, but then he sees it flying by on a bike.
Yeah.
And then he's like, that's not the guy I want anymore. Now that's the guy.
That's
I want.
the guy.
So it could be.
Yeah.
Could be it was just
I
he's
think-
prevented from getting there
I think you're
before.
onto something.
But
Cobb
that's
Vanth had a nice little honeymoon period with it
where he couldn't get. But it's a long time. That when you say 5 years,
Right.
something had to have.
Yeah.
If that's true, he was in there for either a long time.
I believe that's the projected. I think that's what they said
between
from
Return of the
Return
Jedi
and-
Return to Start of Mando.
Yeah.
Okay, so
But,
yeah.
You also made me think too. Is part of that reasoning? You kind of mentioned, do I want to go into it right now? Do I not? Is part of that snapping back into it or seeing the armor, him recognizing or remembering, that's not just my armor. I need that back because that was my dad's armor, and I owe it to him
It's my
to keep his legacy going with
it's
it.
my heritage.
And
It's
so
everything who I
that's
am.
could lead to why we see his encounter with Mando of like, no, that's my armor. It's in my heritage, and showing his reasoning for like, no, this is
isn't
mine.
about
it's,
me.
It's it's
That's
not
the only-
just me. It's
Yeah,
not just
that's
me
the only
because
reason
want
I
it.
think maybe I would have a hard time saying he'd be willing to let it go ever.
Yeah.
I'd be like
Just tied to
maybe
his
he
dad.
was prevented somehow.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Held prisoner in a coma, unconscious, something.
Who knows? I mean, when they
so.
show him in the desert,
Too weak to something.
Yeah.
they
I
show
don't
him. It's
know.
interesting too. If you wonder how long he spends with the Tusken Raiders, because
Oh yeah, he's like.
I mean, he's like fully. I mean, dressed like them almost. I mean,
he's got the weapon.
he's got the gaffy stick weapon. It's like this is a completely different appearance Boba Fett that we've ever seen. Even he doesn't even look like he's walking around with. He doesn't have his armor, but he's got a gun. Like he
Or
doesn't
did
have
they
that
hold
or
him
anything.
slave?
So I'm saying, I mean, we don't know.
They get frowned upon all the time.
Absolutely.
Did
He could have been
they find him and were like, "You're working for us"?
He could have been
kept-
enslaved.
Hey,
in,
what'd they do to Shmi?
Yeah,
and he doesn't dress
They
like them
don't-
because he wants to. That's
he
all
just
he
took.
had.
He literally took.
And
it
the
off
weapon
their
he's
back.
carrying is the weapon he took off the dead
Yeah,
Yeah,
sand
there's a
person he
lot of.
killed.
interesting.
I just love that by the
Man.
newest little footage too that they're gonna get in.
Yeah.
I mean, as I thought that they would, but they're like, we're gonna show you the time
Yeah.
period of what happened, because it'd be impossible to do a show of the Book of Boba Fett. And the biggest
And
thing
just
is
start
that
from right.
we are bringing back a character everyone thought was dead, and not go
Tell
into
you
at
how.
all
How it happened?
the especially a character like that.
Right.
There was a very specific thing that happened on the same planet where it's not like, oh, decades
Right, it's
later
right
he's
there.
somewhere else.
Right.
This is where he was
Just
supposed to
down
have
the
died. It
road.
was right down the road. We can tell the story and have
Yeah.
it completely tie into what we're doing without it derailing or taking
Is he gonna go
focus off
back?
anything else.
Is he going to go back
And
and
stare
just
at the pit.
blow that thing to bits, man?
Go back. Maybe.
Rock it right into the Sarlacc pit.
He
Take
goes
it
back in and
Just blows it up.
This time he
All of a
goes
sudden
in
he trips
voluntarily.
Yeah, right.
And then just takes it out. No, before we wrap up some of this stuff, I want to ask. We know Filoni, Favreau, Filoni especially,
Ferroni
And Favreau.
and
Favreau.
Favreau likes tying in his characters, right? Likes weaving this. We talked about how things,
like that.
Spectating, coming to a point, all these different shows.
Yep.
The Filoni verse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's most likely from other shows? Could be Filoni's characters himself, Bad Batch, Ahsoka, that type of. Who's the most likely to make an appearance in this? Is it? I mean, we mentioned Bosk. I think Bosk will be in it, but more specifically from the other shows that have been announced, could be Bad Batch, Rebels, Clone Wars, stuff we've already seen. Do we see a Rex? He's out there somewhere. Who knows what he's doing? Do we see an Ahsoka? Well, they've met before. They had a history in Clone Wars. Do we see, Bad Batch at all? I don't know. Do we see Cad Bane, another bounty hunter? I don't know.
Cad Bane makes sense.
I'll
tell you one where my brain goes. If it's told, I think less likely, just from a practicality standpoint, less likely if the story just has a couple of flashbacks to show his getting out of the Sarlacc pit but doesn't spend a ton of time going back, this won't happen, then this would be less likely. But Criminal Underworld, a beloved character that I really liked in Solo, Kira. I do think that if part of the story...
Criminal
Dawn?
Connection?
Yeah. If
Crimson
part of the
Dawn.
story
I think so.
is
I think
Criminal
so.
Underworld is this whole crime ring, that type of a thing. Now, again, the reason I say that is I don't see them aging Amelia Clark like 30 years to show. Because when we saw her character, it was Solo, which is pre-New Hope. Now we're going, not 30 years, but we're going all the way
20,
5 years,
15.
5 to 7 years
15 years maybe? Yeah.
post Return of the Jedi. I mean, they could do it, but it would make sense to kind of keep her in that same age range that we've known her before. But it's one of those characters who's out there that I would like to see more story of, and they completely left her story at the end of Solo open with tons of possibilities.
I like that. That made me think of an idea to wrap up.
And a young Tobias Beckett.
And a young Tobias. What if we did this to finish up? Let's make a Bad Batch. Let's make a Boba Fett bet. Okay. You're gonna put you on 3 people. Could be the same people. What about this? Who will we see?
Ooh.
Who do you want to see?
Ooh.
And who do we have to see
Who do we have to see?
to tell the story?
We have to see Boba Fett.
We have to see Boba Fett. I think
Finish
that's a likely bet.
20 cal.
Going off of your question, like people that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
We finished saying we've seen those group, but who haven't we seen that we already know? Who do we want to see? Who will we see? And who do we have to see?
Ooh.
It could be the same.
I just thought of something.
2 of those could be the
crazy.
same person.
Yeah.
3.
Thought of something.
Well,
crazy.
if you have them, if I'm brainstorming, so if you got some, kick it off.
Who do I'll start with who do I want to see
We can do
first.
that one first. Who do we want to see?
Who do I want to see?
That would drive an
literally just thought
interesting
of this.
storyline.
I want to see. It's going to be a package deal.
Ooh.
Let's clarify. If you want to see them, you got to explain how it fits in the story.
Okay.
You can't just say
You mentioned it
Darth
earlier.
Vader.
I want to see
Han and Chewie. They're alive.
Ooh, they're in there.
We know the
Ooh.
history that we got from the prequels or from the sequels are that Han and Leia, at some point are a little bit on the rocks. He goes back to his life. He goes back to his ways. He's trying to find the Falcon. So we know that he's out doing missions. He's doing this stuff. So he's living that world again.
Yep.
Is it possible we see an encounter? The only reason I thought of that is because I thought Mando, and we undershot Mando on Luke
We went
coming
way
back.
under.
We didn't think it was possible.
We
didn't
know that
think they would
Favreau will
it.
do crazy stuff.
We
now.
didn't think it was possible, and they went for it. Is it possible they talked Harrison Ford into coming back again, and he comes back? Now, he'd have to be a little bit younger, but they did it for Luke.
That's right.
Or maybe it's just a Chewie. The reason I say Han and Chewie, I mean, I feel like if they're doing something, they're going to be together possibly.
Right.
So that's why I said package deal. That I think kind of makes sense with the story you mentioned earlier. Who are some people he hates?
Mm-hmm.
Who are some people he might be after?
Yeah.
He might be seeking, where's Han Solo?
Yep.
Where and knowing that he could be back in this world again.
Right.
Possibility. Want to see. And I will never lowball Disney Plus again.
No, we can't.
For thinking they wouldn't put
Could be
Luke
anybody,
Skywalker
man.
in there.
Now you've
Could
got
be
me.
anybody.
I'm in the same.
See, like Chewie would be an easy one to do.
Yeah,
You don't even
Chewie
have
you
to
could do.
You got a
Exactly.
young new actor doing that. That would be
Yeah.
like
Chewie, you could definitely do.
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to just show up
For
and do
sure.
I
it.
keep getting.
We could see Chewie just in a cage somewhere again, and it's like, how'd you get here?
Right.
I keep restricting my guesses because I'm having the same.
So that's who you want to see, Han and Chewie.
Han and Chewie.
Do you have one?
I feel restricted with my thinking the same way that when we were doing our Mandalorian guesses, were like, well, the thing that makes sense, and they were telling us the answer the whole time. Well, the person who makes sense is Luke, but they can't do
That can't
do
no
that.
way.
It's just even practicality. Practically, I don't know how they can
never gonna
make
happen.
that work. It's not going to work. The struggles I have with a couple of these characters that I'm thinking of, Han. Okay, we have Alden. We have Alden Air.
That's true.
But
Do they?
do they
that?
go Alden
All the way
post?
past, yeah.
Because now you're going
That
into a
would
territory
be-
that wouldn't work. I don't think, or
Right.
at least I don't think that would fly.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
now
yeah.
showing him older than what Harrison Ford
Yeah, I don't
was.
think
Right.
that's
and-
good.
So I don't think that works. Then I thought of my other person I thought of was Lando. Lando had ties to Jabba's palace
True.
from being there to
He
help
did?
Luke,
Dang,
but he's
they need to
also
save Lando.
but then I run into the same thing of
Sam Glover. Yeah. Right.
now he's like he plays a great pre-Lando with Donald Glover, but he's gonna be a post Billy D. It doesn't really make sense as
Yep.
far as
True.
because we've also now seen older versions of both of them. Is what I'm saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
That would be like we recasted someone for just in the middle part of their life,
Mhm.
but also the younger part. Like
Right.
the young,
Yeah.
we have Harrison Ford here during this middle part, and then also Force Awakens when he's old.
And then we
Yeah.
have
And then
the
we've
younger
all here
guys.
before,
Star Wars
and then
timeline's
also this
already
middle
confusing.
But he's
part.
older
enough.
than he was, maybe.
Yeah, it would just be confusing, and I don't think that would.
Yeah. The timeline for
sense.
Star Wars is already confusing. with
That's
all that.
it is.
That's something where if it was an animated show, 100%. I think
Yeah.
that would. And I also
Yeah.
think Filoni would be like, yeah, for sure, we're throwing those people in.
I know. I
Um,
didn't think Luke would do it, so who knows?
There he was.
I definitely think it'd be more likely doing a even though I think that'd be a risk too, or just it would be a long shot. I do think the de-aging version of a Harrison Ford
Yeah,
or
yeah,
of
yeah.
a Billy D is the only thing of those that's on the table. I don't think they
Yeah.
would go.
I agree.
I think if they do more stuff with Alden or with
Mhm.
Donald Glover, it's going to be for other young Solo stuff
The
and young
yeah.
Lando stuff
I
to
would
use
agree.
that just to use the time period they've already
I
cast
agree.
them in. My Kira would be one that I would say is the want to see.
You can stop there. He can do his want. We'll do his,
Go to
we'll
want.
do his want.
Go to
We'll do his
want. I'll go with Kira since I already mentioned that earlier.
I don't think they'll do it, but who do I want to see? I want to see live action older Omega.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
That's what
Yeah.
I want to see.
I would love it.
But it would give away. We don't know if she lives. I mean, that's
And with the
Yeah.
Bad Batch season 2 coming out,
if they're planning to keep that a mystery at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
That would take that away. But it would also set people's
Or
minds
what
at
if
ease. But
what
that's
if
what I'd
she
like to
is in
see.
it, but she's completely different?
Yeah.
She's fully. Like, I'm just spitballing, but then it would leave room for season 2 of Bad Batch to be like, well, how did she get to
That's
this
right.
point?
That's right.
How did
Like,
That's
but
what
if
I'm
she shows up and
interested
she's
in,
the
like-
same, then it's like, okay, well, Bad Batch, they just did more stuff, and she's the same. She survived. But if she's like, whoa,
I think
this
that's
is
what I
not
would
the
like
Omega
to
we
see.
know,
Right.
then it makes sense. Season 2 is like, how'd they get to this point?
Yeah. I think that's
know.
who I'd like to see.
And I think it makes sense though too, because that could be the bigger picture thing for him.
That's the
That
one
could be the
connection
connection
to
that
his
he's
past
like-
that's still
Yeah.
out that he could still connect with
Yeah,
family. I mean, really, the clones are
yeah.
brothers, but not the same. They're of,
And they made
they're
a point. They
two of
made
the
a
same.
point to say that too.
Yeah,
They made an emphasis to say Alpha and Omega.
that would be my hope. That's my new hope.
What were the three of them?
Want.
And that's my Attack of the Clones.
Was it likely and have to?
Yeah.
Like
Who do you want to see? Who do you think we'll see? And who do you have?
Okay.
Who do we have to see?
Okay.
You said that's your new hope. That's my Attack of the Clones.
That's my.
Because they're 2 clones.
Yeah.
Get it?
Gotcha.
2 clones. Battle it out.
So that's who we want to see. Now there could be the same answer.
Yeah.
Who do you think?
Who do I think we'll see?
What do you think is like? What do you
I
think is
think-
likely?
yeah.
Like
I
a
think-
low, I'm pretty sure that's gonna be.
I'll
there.
quickly throw out the one I said earlier. I think it's likely we'll see Bosk.
I think we have to see Bosk. I'm gonna use
I
that
think
for my
that-
have to
It's
be.
a different category.
That's
Could be
different.
both.
Have
I think
to.
we have to.
Have
It's gonna be
to.
my have to.
Have to.
Have to is gonna be Bosk.
Story cannot be told without Bosk.
I think it can be told without Bosk, but based on the trailer stuff of seeing the race and the encounter already, I think there's enough there that we have to see him at some point. Not necessarily for the sake of the story, but I think based on the information we have already, we have to see him.
Have to see him.
I think they give the Sarlacc pit a name.
Sarlacc pit.
Mr. Pitt.
Brad.
Remember when we were again, so many of our, I wish we could go to our
Mr.
lost
Pitt.
episode of all our that one episode of all our Mando maybes that we had.
Oh
a
my
ton
gosh.
It's
One
in
of the
there
things we had talked
somewhere,
about.
The Lost
bet you.
Cast?
It's got to be
Somewhere.
in there somewhere.
The Lost Cast.
One of the we were predicting way early on that we would get a. I think
And
that
now
we
we'll
would,
get no credit
that
for
we would
it.
get a Grogu. No, we didn't predict the name Grogu, but they were
No.
like, oh, it's gonna be. We were actually trying to predict when we were gonna get the name.
The
I
name.
actually think we actually said like it was gonna be like episode 5 or something. I think it was end up being episode
Yeah.
4 of season 2, but
I said we'll get words, and we got close. We got some babble.
we never. And we kept saying, but what type of a name would actually work?
Well,
We're like,
we
and
did
then they
kind
did
of
Grogu,
get-
and we're like, oh,
we got
that sure.
telepathic words. He spoke to Ahsoka. I count it.
Oh yeah, we thought it was gonna be like, hello. I am Dio.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we definitely had some good ones.
Okay, so a half. What do we need? We need a half to see.
I still need a likely.
Ooh.
Who do we have to see? Who,
I said Bosk, but
Oh, you hopped on my boss train?
for half.
Oh,
to.
for half to.
who do
half
we
to.
have to
Likely.
see? Man, I don't know. Who do we have to see? Who thought of this idea? Who do we have to see?
I'm trying to think of some of the flashbacks. I think we have to see Tusken Raiders because they've shown it in the trailer.
What if we
Yes.
see? Nah, I'll save it.
All right, maybe I'll flip and go. Bosk is has to see, even though I don't think it's has to.
I don't think
for
it's
the-
crucial for the story, but
I'll
Yeah.
say has to see. I'll go on the record. We'll say Bosk is still likely. We'll say has to see. Cobb Vanth.
okay.
Just because the armor is
The
such
armor.
a big thing.
That's my have to see.
I'll say Cobb Vanth. Now the
What
only
about
reason
Mando?
the only reason I
We gotta-
hesitate is they can totally tell this story of him losing the armor and it's not Cobb Vanth ripping it off of his body.
No,
It's likely the Tusken Raiders or Jawas or some Jawas
somehow it lands in his
scavenge and stuff.
possession. Somehow.
So it's somehow lands in his possession. It doesn't have to be in the show at all, but he's one of those characters that I feel like is circling around the ties to. It doesn't make it not necessarily a ton of sense. They introduced a good. He's mentioned in the Aftermath novels as Cobb Vanth is when he's, I believe, created, but he was such a good character and they left him alive.
yeah,
And it does not feel like he has a tie to Din's storyline anymore for Mando. It doesn't feel like Mando really has much of a tie to Tatooine. It feels like this
Right.
is Cobb Vanth is there on Tatooine.
Yeah.
We now have the person who's going to be ruling, and he's a sheriff in a local town on
Right.
Tatooine, and we now have an
marshal.
He's a marshal.
he's a marshal.
The sheriff. He's a marshal. I was watching Tombstone the other day. That's what I got.
That's it.
I'm a Huckleberry. And,
I'm about to go crazy over here. Aren't I?
So all that to say, the relationship of where he is with the town that they saved from the Krayt Dragon, and now him just being ruling, and it looks
Right.
like based on the trailer Doesn't look like he stays in Jabba's palace 24/7. They're out on the town. They're out and about. I could see them having a run-in.
All right.
That means I'm done.
You said you're have to?
Have to. Same as my
Top Vanth?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Likely, I'm going to say Mando.
You think we'll see Mando?
I think we'll see Mando. Why? Is because, I'm about to go crazy.
Ooh, he's going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
The more I started thinking about it, I thought about my question earlier. There's going to be some tie. It's just Filoni's had a tie in every show so far.
Right.
So if there's going to be one, I feel like he's likely because Grogu's gone. What's Mando's purpose right now? Is he going to go back to what?
Well, he's got to decide what to do with the Darksaber.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. So he's got to decide
ties
with
to
that. But I
Mandalore.
mean,
Yeah.
he has. But he also, aside from decision on that, what is his not new purpose, but like what is he kind of out there doing? Is he going to revert back to just doing?
Because
doing
his arc
missions
for
back
now
to the
with
guild.
Grogu is done.
Right,
That was
because
the completed
Grogu's arc
yeah.
is now gone with Luke. So I think we could see a crossover and get Mando in here, which could be a tie-in to Mando Season 3, maybe.
Yep.
I think all of this, I feel like, so going off the idea that this is all going to cross over at some point. Meet up at some point, not for like a big like story thing, but there'll be interweaving things where they cross at some point. Mm-hmm. The one thing I feel like we've been finding out so far between Bad Batch, Mando, Clone Wars, Rebels, is cloning.
Yeah.
And I think Boba might end up finding out information about the First Order and what's going on about the cloning that they teased in Mando.
Mm-hmm.
The facility where we think we saw that Snoke figure in the tank.
Yeah.
They never came back to that cloning stuff, right? Or what Thrawn is out there doing, which I think Thrawn will be answered in the Ahsoka show because that's kind of her thing. But I think it's all kind of leading to this path. And what would drive Boba towards more of a purpose is the cloning stuff.
Yep.
Knowing that that's where he came from, knowing that he potentially is, from what he knows, could be the last one, or the last pure clone, not like aged and stuff. He would have feelings towards cloning, especially if he knows the Empire is behind it now and what they're doing. If he saved Grogu, but then he finds out their purpose behind Grogu was to clone and do this. I just feel like this is all kind of weaving towards the cloning stuff and eventually kind of leading into the prequels.
Yeah.
This is down the road with all the shows. But so far we've had a cloning tie and a lot of the stuff with Camino and Omega and Bad Batch.
Yep.
I feel like there might be something there for Boba to find a purpose through.
It would be funny that with all of the Snoke theories that have gone on since 2015, not a single person probably predicted, you know what my Snoke theory is? I think he has ties to Boba Fett. They're like, who died 30 years ago?
Hey, what?
What? Boba Fett.
Boba Fett.
Snoke.
I don't know. I just feel like with him doing
I'm not
this
saying it couldn't happen.
underworld
I'm just
stuff-
saying that would be a funny
Not that he's
fruition
actually in
of-
the cloning, but like he would have feelings towards that.
Yeah.
If he found out that through his underworld stuff, he's finding out these
They're doing
First
cloning
Order,
again.
these Empire facilities are out here that are off the map. They already showed it.
Right.
They already showed it in Mando.
Yeah.
They didn't know the facility was
They
going
thought they
on.
were shut. Yeah.
Thought it was shut down. So
Abandoned.
is he going to come across this at some point and have, something to do with that? I don't know.
Could be. It's a fair bet.
That's a fair Boba bet.
My what I think we see is much less exciting. I think we're going to see one or more of the Hutts live action.
I like that.
Do we get a flashback
It'd be
of Jabba?
hard not to.
Ooh.
Do we get a Jabba flashback? I think we might.
That might be Jabba. I think that would
think we
be.
might. Get a little flashback of Jabba.
And I think they'll do it. They'll do the live action Hutts like they did it in Empire or in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
I think that's what they'll do. Because it'll be a big blobby guy. It won't be a computer generated. It'll be an actual effect.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see, because how could that void happen and then somebody else comes in and the Hutts not attempt
You're right.
to try to get that back?
Oh, you're getting my
Maybe
mind
that's where
running
we
now.
see the other. Maybe that's where we see Bosk. He's working for the other Hutts.
Maybe.
These other bounty
'Cause they're
hunters
gonna-
are working for the other
They're
Hutts.
going to
come
be
back at 'em.
assassination attempts. They have to be. That's how he came in. And who else would be the one to try to get rid of him other than the Hutts?
Yeah.
Will
You
we?
think the Hutts would just let Bib also
No
just
way.
take over?
No way.
No.
No way. Yeah.
Not willingly or not for long.
He was probably their puppet. I wouldn't be surprised if he
Yeah.
was in there as like
Calm,
just
yeah.
they're really
He was the
controlling
snub.
everything. Yeah, right. And then he comes in not realizing maybe that Bib is the puppet that's actually he just stole from the Hutts.
So you think this all might be just tying into the Hutts?
I
think
mean,
that's
it'd be
likely.
hard for them to not have a hand in it, right?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you got my mind racing now. Now I've got a couple of possibilities of cameos, and do we see just
Zero.
even a small?
Yeah,
There you go.
sorry.
Zero that.
And he talks like that, or like a blah 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 blah
If
blah.
not, your family.
Yeah.
I can't even do it.
I wouldn't put it past them.
Would clunky means curtains. Would
McCluggins Curtains.
is there any chance just for a small little cameo? I got a couple of names now. These are not even on our scale of likely this or that. Small cameo. We're walking through. Boba and Finnick are walking through the streets, and you see, little Watto. Watto's right there,
man.
just grizzled as ever. He's now
With his
this would
chance
be-
cube.
He's like 80 years old. I mean, I
We
don't know how old
long
Watto
those-
is.
we don't know
Maybe
how
I
long those
don't
things
know.
live.
Yeah.
Do we see any pod
Sebulba?
racing? Oh my gosh,
Pod
dude.
racing.
And that was my next thing was
Pod
if
racing.
Because they run the whole thing. That was John.
that's
They
the
gotta
Hutts.
see-
I was gonna say,
I
what
want
if
the-
one of the things they're sitting down and it's one of those things where you're taking over the Hutt estate. Okay, well let's get we come in here and let's look at. I own the racetracks, and now we have we
get
a
a
1
young
minute scene
Skywalker.
of Boba just walking up to the and these here proops of it's Skywalker. No, it's not Skywalker now, but. And you just see even just a little 5 second when you just see
I think we're getting
Sebulba
it.
still racing,
I think we're getting it.
and
Or-
they go to the pod race for just
Could
a
be.
good
That's
1
where they
minute
meet.
scene.
They meet up there for something.
And he's even just like he's just checking in on all. These are my assets now. Like I've taken over. These are things that he used to run. Oh well, he maybe even looks at it and he's just like, shut it down. It's like
Right.
this is the end of it.
I could even see him walk into an empty stadium.
Yeah, just looking around.
This was it, huh? Yeah, right.
It's one
I
of the
think we're
big.
getting the
I'm trying to think
pod
of.
race sound
This is
for
a
sure.
show that's obviously. He might leave and go off world because he's got Slave One, but this is a show that revolves around the
right.
state of Tatooine, like as far as the state of what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you think of Tatooine, you think of Jawas, you think of Sand People, the
Sand
Tusken
People.
Raiders, but you also think of Watto in the village doing his
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah.
You think of obviously you think of Jabba's palace and
Pod
Sarlacc, but you
racing.
think of pod racing.
Right.
And so that was
think
that was
we're
one of the
getting
things I was
pod-
going to
pod
ask is
racing for
if
sure.
that's even if it's not pod racing in general, just even a reference to it or going and stepping out onto the. I think it could happen because of the tie to the Hutts.
I think it's a new likely for me.
Because of the
maybe
tie
a
to the
must.
Hutts. That wouldn't
Maybe
be
a
way
must.
out there. It's a tie to the Hutts, and the
It
Hutts
definitely
are.
is.
That's where all the gangsters go to bet and make their money and
That's
stuff.
right.
It actually makes.
Yeah.
It's like it's the
one of the main assets.
It's the gangsters going to the horse races. It's the exact.
Yeah.
That's right.
Their,
That's
the
right.
Star Wars version of it.
It is.
I could see it.
I
can see it.
think that's happening. If it doesn't, I'll be mad.
I will be mad.
Maybe
I
a
think
little
it's
bit
happening.
of
Missa?
You got a little Jar
Oh,
Jar.
what would that be
appearance.
like?
What would talk about setting
Jar
the world
Jar's
on fire?
back on.
Just not a big thing, but he runs into Finnick. He probably Boba's got no time for that.
Literally runs
But-
into Finnick.
But
on
literally
accident. Walks right into Finnick.
bumps into her in the street, and it's a
Missa.
2-minute scene, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, we saw Jar Jar
It's Jar
again."
Jar.
He's got a grizzled beard, and he's doing his own thing, and he just walks on, and you got
drunk.
enough. He's
He's just miserable.
Oh,
Jar Jar.
Missa needs another.
and he's just sitting there just
Can you
drinking.
imagine?
Again, that's wild. Not even speculation. I don't think that's likely to happen.
I don't
Pod
think
race,
so.
though, I think we could be
I
on
think
Pod
we
race,
see
man.
pod race. I think we
The
see
more I talk about the pod race,
Why
thing,
not?
I think why not?
I think Boba's in it.
Boba races pods.
No, I think that's gonna happen. I think so. Pod racing.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
Did we all throw them out?
I think so.
And that was it.
That's it.
It's a good place to end it.
Hey,
It'll be
Pod
fun.
racing.
There you
It'll
go.
be fun to see what
Now
happens.
this is podcast.
This is podcast.
This is podcasting.
I'll try
Hey.
podcasting. That's a nice trick.
There you go. As always, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to us here at Star Wars Guys. We love your input. We want to know your questions. What are you speculating? What are you looking forward to the most about the Book of Boba Fett? Who's going to be in it? What are your likelies? Your Boba Betts? Your must bees in Book of Boba Fett? What do you think about the show? What are you looking forward to most? You can always reach out to us and DM us on Instagram. That is @_Star Wars Guys, and we will address those on future episodes. And as always, may the Force be with you.
Misa needs another.
I don't know.
Annie,
Honey,
little Annie.
you're a funny little boy.
Jabba ruled with fear.
And as you, Annie.
Do the Jabba rule with fear line as Jar Jar.
Jabba rule. Misa. Jabba rule with fear. Misa intends to rule with respect.
If you made it this far and you enjoyed that episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell a friend about us here at Star Wars Guys. Your support is much appreciated, and it never goes unnoticed. We'll see you all in the next episode.